like I said, PAW Week, Panther Alumni Week, and I invited Miriam. She was a student of mine in one of my first semesters here, and she took this very class in this very room. I remember very well, and I actually remember very close to where we were in the semester. Miriam's kind of, there was like a fire lit underneath her. So I'll let her explain kind of what happened, but I'm just going to turn it over to you and we'll open it up.
All right, thank you. Well, it's really nice to come back. I can't believe the campus looks different even from a year out. So I like to talk about, some of the things that I've encountered, through after FIU and going into the workforce and working full time. But first, I want to get your take on what are some of your career goals and what do you guys see yourselves, 3 years from now after you guys are done with the program here. Is everybody in the IIE program? Most?
But not all.
Okay, so why don't we just go around the room real quick, just take 2 sentences to say your name and what are some of your career goals and what do you see yourself in 3 years?
My name is Christina Rada. I am a non-degree seeking, hopefully to get into the doctoral program in international education. And my goals in the next 5 years is to graduate and maybe get a higher position, assistant director, somewhere that I can actually practice international education and or study abroad, one of those areas.
Okay.
My name is Apple. In 5 years, like Christy, I want to graduate from my master's degree, and I want to be, if possible, the cultural professional at any agency. It doesn't matter university or private company.
Okay.
My name is Kate, and in the future, I hope to work in a position related to the National Student Service.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Amanda.
Yeah, I want to work with an international organization that helps children in Latin America with education.
Oh, very cool.
Hi,
Okay.
my name is Melissa. I hope to work in study abroad or international student recruitment. I'm just facilitating student exchange.
Okay.
Cody, my goals are similar to what others have said, just look toward higher education work and possibly outreach for more underrepresented and rural students.
Okay.
I am Cece, and 5 years, I will have my doctorate, and I will open as many daycares as I can, well, learning centers as I can in underprivileged neighborhoods.
Okay.
My name is Ashley, and in 3 years, I see working for the Office of Study Abroad right now as a grad assistant, so I would like to either work for the Study Abroad office, but most importantly, I want to be a mommy, probably.
Okay, sounds good.
This is Daniel. I also have similar goals, but I would like to work in either an Office of Study Abroad or promoting international education abroad.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Victoria, and in 3 years, I hope to either be working for an NGO doing human rights and peace education, or starting my own ESL language school.
Okay.
Abroad.
So everybody has very, very similar goals, I would say. So I like to start off with my FIU, where I came here for my undergrad. I got my undergrad in International Relations and Political Science with a certificate in Latin American Studies. And I also played soccer here. So FIU had been my home since 2007 when I started here. You guys are going to be amazed. If you see a map, you know the SIPA building? That didn't exist. That just came off the earth like no other. But a lot of things that are happening at FIU, every time I come back, you see something different. You know, if you go away for 6 months and you come back, there's a new building, there's a new street light or whatever it is. So I'm just so happy to be here back in my home. Just I consider this my home. And then I actually took a break from when I got my bachelor's degree. I went to Israel for 6 months. I did some volunteer work, and I did a lot of work with Palestinian-Israeli conflict. There's this organization that actually takes Israelis and Palestinians on trips together, and they want dialogue. So in these trips, you meet soldiers who are no longer soldiers on the Israeli side, and you meet maybe prisoners from on the Palestinian side that went to prison but want to get the other side. So those are the things that are really not shown in the news. And for me, I was brought up, I'm Jewish, and I was brought up in Jewish schools. I never really got to see the other side. So that was a time for me where I finally got to open up and see, what it's like to, be, being raised in the West Bank. It's tough for them to go through checkpoints. But then on the other side, you understand that from the Israelis, because of all the bombings and all the violence, they need to have those checkpoints. So all of the conflicts always have two sides, and that's when my interest for languages really emerged, because the way that you talk to someone really dictates where the conversation is going to go. So for example, the Dalai Lama said, if you speak to someone in a foreign language, they're going to understand it. But if you speak to someone in their own language, it's going to go to their heart. So that's why, for me, languages is so important, because it's not only a way to communicate with one another, but it's also a way to understand the other side. And especially if you want to work with NGOs, if you want to work, with underprivileged neighborhoods, you need to know how they communicate. It's not always the verbal communication, but the way that you approach them, the way that you raise them up, taking care of them, the communication that goes to their heart. So with that, I studied some Portuguese in my undergrad. I'm trying to improve it. My Hebrew skills have also been improved, and hopefully I hope to keep doing that so I can go back to Israel someday and actually learn Arabic with a good base of Hebrew. So some of the experiences that have shaped me are this Tikkun Olam experience for the 6 months that I was on. And one advice that I wanna get to is that relationships really are so important. I mean, from my experience in those 6 months, I met some amazing people that are actually doing work in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through Jewish organizations. So I'll come back to that point, but just keep that in mind. You guys are all looking for the same things pretty much. So whether it is working in study abroad offices or NGOs, you might be sitting right next to one of your future coworkers. So try to keep those relationships alive, as much as you can. So I want to just give you a brief overview of what I do now and how my FIU degree really helped me through my career. When I came back from Israel, after I got my undergrad from FIU, I was able to participate as a volunteer for the Jewish Community Center Maccabi Games. So I don't know if you know what that is, but it's pretty much a platform for Jewish athletes all over the world to come to participate in the Olympic style competition. We teach them things about their identity, such as Jewish values, and we try to have like camaraderie within us, so that they understand what it's like to be Jewish. A lot of these kids might never go to another Jewish event, so this is a time for that celebration. So I actually coached soccer for 3 years, and one of the meetings that we had was to actually host this big event. There's about 1,500 athletes and artists. They've expanded it to some artists to come to the JCC Maccabi Games. So because I was a volunteer, when I was done with my FIU degree for my master's, they asked me to come on board and to be the coordinator for the program. So that's just a very small example of relationships that I really got the job because of the volunteer experience that I had done, and because they saw in me like some potential to grow. I don't know if you're familiar with the JCCs. across. There's about 90 to 100 JCCs all over the world, all over the United States. Sorry, all over the world they exist, but they're called something different. And it's under the JCC Association umbrella. So what they do is they have programs it's mostly for kids, but they also have a lot of adult services programs. They work as an NGO, so everything is, there's a lot of bureaucracy, obviously, but that's also a good thing because it allows you to grow and it allows you to really develop, there's a lot of areas. Anything from marketing and membership, just like a normal company, you need numbers. Just like a normal company, you need to be able to market your programs, and also with the specific programs, like the one I run is under the teen and family services. So my FIU degree, I'm one of the only ones within the center in my position in the level that I am with a master's degree. So after I became the coordinator, they actually promoted me within 6 months to assistant director of the program, because I had a master's, because of the experience that I gained and the knowledge within the master's. You have to understand, not everybody has a master's degree, and no matter what field you go into, it sets you apart from a lot of people that have only a bachelor's degree or are working towards their bachelor's. So I see a lot of possibility in a lot of NGOs because they're looking for people who put an extra year or two of their life to further themselves into whatever the field might be. Education has a lot of different branches, whether it's education in a program or education in the elementary, middle school, or high school level. So consider that as one of, if for some reason your career changes, just keep that in mind. I mean, NGOs want to carry their message, and a lot of those times their message is not necessarily business directed, but they're run like a business because they need to stay alive, they need to get donations. So that might be another career opportunity for you guys. So just, something to just keep in mind. So another thing that I want to open up to you guys is that FIU has a lot of things that, thankfully for that, I was able to grow, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. When I started to look for master's programs. I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. But once I saw the international education program, I realized that it's not only going through study abroad programs, but it's giving you a global perspective on what the world really is. So I recommend that you go into different departments, you research what classes you want to take, and take some risks. I took a nutrition class, and I was the only IAE student there with all these nutritionists that knew way more about nutrition than I did. But I learned a lot about world nutrition, and that really gave me, an edge, later on. So even if you don't know what you want to go into, just challenge yourself and take a class that you might not even know what it's like, but it's gonna give you some tools that you can use later, in your life. Maybe you want to go into nutrition and you haven't even thought about it. Well, that's the opportunity that this program really gives you, that that opportunity to take those classes, and it might open up your eyes to something that you had never seen. Like another something that FIU also prepared me was, when I studied abroad in Argentina as an undergrad. Maybe you can't do it as a graduate student, but you can research and see, maybe during your summers you can go and study abroad. I mean, we study it, so why not take advantage of you actually going out and going abroad, maybe not as part of your studies, but as part of an internship that you can find. And also, I took a class about Latin America, and we had to read a book a week, and to me that was crazy because, here in my IE classes, there was a lot of reading, but that class, I had to be on point, and there was, in these classes, like for example, the nutrition class, all of these students delve into their topic. So they are way ahead of the game, already. And to be able to prepare things in class, your presentations, or whenever you talk and you sit around the table and you bring something to the table, you need to know your stuff. So the IIE program allowed me to really adventure into different topics that were completely different one semester to the next. If you're majoring Latin American studies, you're going to be learning about Latin American studies every semester, every class. And I just challenge you guys. I mean, I did it, and it was a great experience for me to go into the different avenues and to see what other thing there is. I mean, your FIU has a million classes that you could take, and I'm pretty sure most of them, Dr. Gardinier will probably agree, that you can, if you want to look for something like a topic, definitely go into it. So I just want to close into, again, relationships. That's how I got my job, pretty much. And when I went on to New York as part of my job to prepare for the JCC Maccabi Games, one of the former organizers for the JCC Maccabi program, they mentioned you have to be friends with your transportation company. What happens if there's a problem and they need to send in another bus? They're not going to do it for anybody. They're going to do it for their friends. So also, whenever we're going to need 1,000 volunteers to run this event, 400 host families, 1,200 visiting athletes and artists. So these are numbers that, if you think about it, it's crazy. You need to think about where you're going to put a garbage can in which location. That's how big this event is. It's 1 week, but 1 week of social events, teaching kids about everything, from sports to art to being Jewish and Jewish identity. People coming from all over the world, spectators, hotels. So there's a lot of different characteristics of this program. So the only way we're going to get through it is by, again, establishing relationships with our vendors, with our volunteers, with our host families, with our own athletes as well. So thank you for having me. I hope this 10 minutes or whatever it was conversation really opened up your eyes into what you could be doing in the future. I had the same idea. I wanted to work abroad, actually, and now I love Florida. I want to stay here. No matter what and no matter where you go, stay true to what you believe in. And even though I wanted to work with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I'm working for a Jewish organization that I have the opportunity to grow and maybe even become the CEO one day. And it's related still to what I still wanted to do. So, just keep going, keep your track, keep in the back of your mind, in the front of your journey, in the back of your mind, the things that you want to stay close to. And no matter what, take the opportunities that are presented to you. Okay?
Sounds good. Can we open it up for some questions?
Yeah, sure.
I know people have questions. Don't be shy. She was a student not too long ago.
2 years ago, actually.
Can you say a little bit about your experience going to CIES that year in your paper?
Yes, sure. It was an awesome experience. My paper was on dialogue, again, between the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. There's a lot of words. That's why I came back to the language issue, that when I was in Israel, I realized that the problem is not only about territory, but it's also about the history that happened in the past. So, for example, the War of Independence of 1948 for Israelis is al-Nakba, which means the destruction for them on their side of the spectrum. So there you see with one word how one word can really change the whole history of what the problem really is. So my paper was about dialogue and how that has really the contingency of dialogue within the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and how we have to be careful. When you say Judea and Samaria, you're referring to the Israeli side. When you say the West Bank, you're really referring to on the Palestinian side. When you say wall, you're referring to maybe the wall that the Palestinians say that Israeli built. But when you say barrier, you're saying on the Israeli side. So I really talked about how language has an issue, and that was pretty much my presentation. I strongly suggest you guys go, because you're gonna be meeting, again, relationships, a lot of people from all over the country. And if you want to be part of international education and you want to be guided in that direction, then that's definitely something that you should consider. Even if you don't think that your paper is good enough, you can still work on it later on in other classes. You can still, maybe make it a thesis later on if you want to go into a doctorate program. I don't know. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be in the early stages too. And a lot of us presented that way, not only from FIU, but from other universities. There are some students who, yes, they already had pretty much like their thesis pretty much done. But you actually also get to learn different perspectives and to maybe something that you hadn't thought about, that's close to you. So I strongly suggest that you go. It's an amazing, amazing experience. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That made me feel much better about my paper.
What is your paper on?
Rwanda and Bosnia and post-conflict human rights education.
Oh.
So.
And you just started writing it, or is this something that interests
Literally
you?
just started writing it.
And why did you pick that topic?
It's something that I've been interested in for a while. I've done a couple of different papers in undergrad on Bosnia and Rwanda, and I thought it would be really interesting to connect them in like a comparative case study.
Yeah.
So, and now bringing in human rights education.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could start, with that and present it. And there's people that can actually guide you when you present it, and they say maybe you should go this route or the other route. So
Yeah, I mean the feedback that you get. I know that after you presented, there was somebody that really wanted to talk to you and kind of pulled you aside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you kind of had to, step back and hear what they were going to be saying. It's especially around contentious issues, and that happened with another presentation last year, where the students kind of had to step back and really hear what the audience was trying to address and the criticism as well. So it's actually a very good experience, especially for anyone who wants to continue with their academic study, to be able to field critical comments. Because it's so hard, but it's something that's really a part and parcel to, you send a journal article out to be reviewed, and it's either going to be rejected flat out, even if you think it's the best piece of literature you've ever created, or it's going to be sent back to you and said you need to do significant revisions and then resubmit it, and we'll consider it. Almost nobody gets accepted right away. So rejection is just a part of the game, and the reality is there's a lot of good feedback that people get through challenging each other's ideas and maybe some of the assumptions that you didn't even know you had when you did your paper or made your presentation, but somebody else saw it and said, is that really a fair assumption to make? And then you can think about whether it was.
Yeah, maybe you can change it up, or maybe the direction that you're going, you might be going to something completely different than what your original thought was.
Yeah.
So then you get to expand on that. So
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? Do you want to? Doesn't have to be a question. It can be just a comment. You have an awesome professor, by the way. Dr. Gardinier is the best, so you chose the right class.
Don't raise the bar.
No, it's true.
Thanks. No, I mean,
It's true.
I think a lot of people are interested in, intercultural communication, study abroad, and I think, there's so much embedded in that world and the cross-cultural exchange. So I think you really raised a lot of issues that will be relevant to people just moving across cultures and the learning experience. It's a constant learning experience. And also professionally, I think it's important, your message about maybe you're not going to land the exact job that you thought you were going to land right after graduation, but you can kind of grow with where you are. I think that's a really good message, and see what opportunities open up if you just kind of allow yourself to grow in the position where you are.
Yeah, like for example, we have international delegations that are coming in for JCC Maccabi, and one of the things that nobody had thought about before to do it was to do an orientation for these kids who come from Mexico, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, Israel, things that they don't know about American culture. So those are the things that you can bring to the table in any program that has international students or kids or exchange or whatever it is, because you have that knowledge and you have those tools. So it doesn't have to be necessarily working in an NGO that promotes or that feeds the children, which those NGOs are amazing, and I love them for what they do, for kids. But if you want to stay local, if you want to stay here in the U.S. and you want to make a direct impact through, programs like this, there's a lot of them and they keep growing. So you just have to find your niche, and you just have to find, your direction pretty much.
The JCC, is it here in Miami, or is your office here in Miami?
So my office is in Davie, in Fort Lauderdale. But we have JCCs in North Miami Beach. There's one here by Kendall, Miami Beach. So just in South Florida, from Fort Lauderdale down, there's 4. In Boca, there's another one. In Palm Beach, there's 2. So there's about 100, all over the U.S. And it's definitely they are always looking for young people. I mean, when people talk about JCCs, a lot of people who work there are seniors. They're almost, they want to retire, they want to move on. People have that conception. I mean, I can tell you they call us, in my JCC, they call the 20s and 30s, they call us the quarters, because we've done, just like a cute way of saying. And I can tell you that there's, it's not even a third of us that live there, that work there. So they are definitely looking for people, like you, with maybe the international background, or maybe for these kinds of programs that they always bring kids from Israel. Right then, that's international. So look into it, and there's a lot of them that I don't want to put the gentleman down, but they want to promote also the female touch on campus. I know my CEO told me a few days ago he went to a meeting with all the CEOs from the different JCCs, and about a third of the CEOs were female. So that just shows how much they've grown and how much they've actually looked for that women empowerment. So it's great. Yeah.
Just trying to think. Other questions? Practical, related to school, FIU program?
Are you all in your first semester, second semester? Mostly first? Okay. Right.
Well,
What kind of things do the volunteers do there? What roles do they have?
For the JCC Maccabi games, or for the JCC in general?
I guess in general.
Okay, so that's a very good question. So JCCs work very close with a lot of volunteers. The volunteers are called chairs, and they're the ones who really support the program. Without them, the program doesn't exist. So for every program that we have, we will have a volunteer who is kind of like the president of that group. Additionally, we have a board who oversees, they're like the owners of what we do. It's practically, in most NGOs, that's the way they work. They have a board, which are only volunteers. They don't get paid for it, and they actually pay to be part of the board. Sometimes it's minimum like $1,000 donation, $5,000 donation. And these people really dictate what goes on with the JCC. For example, there's something called CCC, which is the accounting software that we use. Nobody wanted to use it because it's not a very good software, okay? That's just my opinion. But at the same time, it's a software that lets you do a lot of things, not only with accounting purposes, but for marketing as well. So nobody was using it, but the board decided that everybody in the agency had to go through an orientation to be able to use it. And since that happened, everybody has gone through orientations to be able to use it. So they really dictate what goes on. They work closely, the president, who's the president of the board, works closely with the CEO, so that all of these things go through. So that's with the board. With the programs, for example, right now we have the Jewish Film Festival, which is part of the cultural arts. We only have 3 staff people that are part of the cultural arts, but we have hundreds of volunteers through the Jewish Film Festival, the Music Festival, and the Art Festival that they support, these programs. And I have a volunteer who works the same amount of hours that I work because she's so passionate about JCC Maccabi. So, that's just overall in how JCCs work. Every JCC is different. A lot of them are staff-based, a lot of them are staff-led, a lot of them are volunteer-led, and a lot of them are like mine. That's half and half. Specifically for the JCC Maccabi games, the 1,000 volunteers that we will need they're going to be doing anything from operations, so that means going through the park and making sure there's enough water, there's enough food, carrying things, supplies, anything from food. We're going to be serving close to 16,000 meals, on the whole week. Also working with the housing chairs to house the kids. They're going to be working with hospitality, so with hotels, guiding direction, letting people where to go. Safety and security, so we have BSO, the police, who's going to be working with us, but we also have volunteers that are part of the safety part, making sure that everybody's wearing the credential, making sure that a lot of eyes so that they can see, where things are going. So it can be anything from just sitting at a desk to being outside schlepping ice and waters, to anywhere from seating people for the Arts Fest showcase. So, I'll give you guys my business cards if you wanted to learn more about it. And maybe, I'm sure that this program exists in many of their areas. It's not only part of the JCC. Maybe in a different capacity, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of Ys have their system where they all get together and they do something like that. So, but volunteers, it depends. It can be 1 hour a day, and it can be the whole day. You know, we also have when the kids get here, you know, at the airport, we're using Miami and Fort Lauderdale. There has to be somebody there to greet them and say hi. So it could be a fun job where you get seen, and it can be something where, you know, you're in the back of the kitchen helping to serve the food, you know. So it really just depends. If you guys want to get involved, and I'll give you my business card, the website's there, and everybody has to go through that registration because of security reasons. But it just gives you some other perspective to see and network with a lot of people. I mean, we're raising close to
These
three.
are like global kids, right? I mean, kids from all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, there's about 200 kids from Great Britain that are going to be coming here, about 50 from Israel, but I would say 15 to 20 from Mexico. Canada, we have Toronto, I think Vancouver, a couple of cities in Canada. Australia's also bringing a delegation, probably a small one, like 15 kids. So yeah, there's a lot of different, I would say maybe a little less than a third are internationals. Yeah. So.
And how long did you say the games run?
It's from August 9th through August 14th. Yeah, but there's some orientations before then, and I mean, if you guys want to just learn about it and come to a fun event, we are on March 29th. We're gonna have an event that it's gonna be like a game show, a fun thing that it's free. We're serving dinner, and we're giving giveaways, and it's gonna be a really fun day to just let people know what is going on. I think it's gonna start at 4, but I'll send you the details if they wanna come and just see and check it out. It might be something that you might be interested in, and you can volunteer, and little by little, you never know, grow within the JCC world as well. Not everybody is Jewish. I want to make that clear. I mean, the athletes that participate are going to be Jewish because that's the whole point, is to enrich their Jewish identity. But, you know, I would say 30% of the people who go to the JCC are not Jewish. Volunteers don't have to be Jewish. You know, and we're raising close to $3 million. So just there, people that are part of the executive leadership team, those are people with a lot of money and a lot of businesses that are really profitable. So it's a great opportunity to just network and get to meet them and talk to them from all aspects, you know. Anywhere from 18 all the way to 60-year-olds are going to be there. So, all right, so let me give you some business cards and see.
I'm wondering if in your work there you have any opportunity, having had this experience in Israel and Palestine and having really, you know, had your eyes open in some way about the conflict from a different angle than maybe a lot of other people have. Do you have any opportunities in your work now to kind of raise awareness about the human rights aspects or the peace education aspects of the conflict?
Yeah, so right now I'm working only with JCC Maccabi because we're hosting this event, but there's another program called Maccabi Tzair that's more a leadership program. So after that's over, they want to move me so that I can kind of direct those two programs. And within there, since this is a really sensitive issue, I can't really bring it up to kids who are not really ready to know what it's on the other side. So it is part of my plan to have some type of leadership training as part of what they already have as leaders, but to open up and take them to Israel, and because the plan is to take them to Israel, but only to show the Jewish part of things. So my plan is to kind of give it a little twist and and maybe take them to places that they haven't been, that are also amazing, and provide a lot of learning, but also maybe meet some Palestinians on the way there, so that they know.
Or contact some of those organizations
Exactly.
that are bringing the youth together. Yeah, I think it's a good example around this conflict about how the issue of human rights, which we're going to be talking about today, takes on different nuances depending on who's talking about the rights and whose rights they are. So that conflict is a really great example of how each side has different claims to human rights. And most times, because it's such a ongoing, intractable conflict in many ways, each side does not really know the human rights claims of the other side. So you have a real opportunity to do some peace education at some point.
Definitely,
and maybe try to kind of infuse a little bit of that human rights knowledge of universality and inclusion.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I want to do after August, because right now it's getting overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It might be for me. I'm graduated and I work and I love my job, but I don't know if I want to stay there. I might want to move into another type of NGO and another something that is a little more precisely to what I envision with it. Maybe dialogue and language and things like that. But if I do stay, I'm definitely going to take that position later and keep growing. I mean, I've only been there for a year and I've already had my title changed, once, and then 6 months from now probably be another time. So hopefully that would be a program that I can preside over and teach them not only about, education with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but Holocaust, which is something that hasn't really, a lot of kids don't know about, even if they are Jewish, they don't know about. And I'm not only talking about the Holocaust that happened. I'm talking about genocide in general as well, that happens nowadays as well. So there's a lot of things that these kids they don't learn in school because it's not part of the curriculum. And our job as community center is really to teach them the things that are involved in our community. I mean, where I work right now, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, it was the headquarters of the KKK. And that changed, that changed dramatically within 40 years. So, yeah, it's amazing. Sure, yeah.
Cool.
If you guys want to talk about anything, really, whether it's FIU related or just advice on something or a friend or whatever, my information's on those cards. If you want to talk about, what topic you're going to write that's related maybe to Latin America or Israel or the Palestinian conflict, I'm very happy to help. So please feel free to, reach out. And I wish you guys the best. Hopefully take advantage of these classes. I really miss it. It's awesome.
The idea of volunteering too, because a lot of times the idea of doing something and you don't get paid and what, you're using your time and everything, but there can be a longer term payoff, not only in terms of giving back to a community, but it could materialize into a position later on. So that's a great message too, that volunteering or doing some kind of internship can really be a great thing.
Even if it's not on your resume, even if it's something that
it's experience and connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And relationships that really, the world is made on relationships, and that's really a good way to keep growing as a person as well. So.
Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Wow, that's good. Let me make sure you get all your goodie bag here. You have